Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Millionaire Millennial. I'm your host, Stack Banks. You are now tuned in. It is June 19th, 2024. For those of you who are just tuning in, I'm actually filming this on my home computer out of my apartment, and I'm not in the office. I usually do those on weekends or when I bring CEOs on. These are just easy for me to film, the ease of use for me just to turn on a webcam and hopefully give you guys some useful information. Um, with that being said, number one, this is not investment advice. This is not financial advice. This is just education and a good place, hopefully, for you guys to start. But there's a lot going on, both in the stock market, financial market, crypto market. But this specific cast is going to be very quick and is going to be about Bankscoin. And I've mentioned it multiple times in cast before, um, that Bankscoin is an initiative that I brought forth that I believe will change the entire financial marketplace across the board, but in all markets, but also specifically within crypto and the crypto ecosystem, the Web3 ecosystem. I'm the inventor of it. I'm the founder of the company that will monitor it. And what Bankscoin is going to be the world's first semi uh, decentralized permissionless ledger, or excuse me, permissioned ledger. And the sole purpose of Bankscoin is to combat inflation on the United States dollar and to also recapture lost value of the United States dollar. So a lot of you guys, especially millennials right now, are experiencing inflation and how a dollar doesn't seem to buy much and how it seems very weak. And I'm going to be releasing materials, a white paper, as well as video material that will actually package this in a much more concise manner and in a way that makes it easier to understand for you guys, hopefully, and addresses the underlying issues that are causing inflation that no one seems able to fix, let alone answer what's going on. It's everyone sort of seems to throw their hands up when you look at um, actually combating inflation on USD and what it's doing to our economy and to the younger generations um, of Americans. And I think it's about time someone has done something. And I've been working on this for quite a while, and there is more to be done with it, and there I'm sure things are going to change as time goes on. But I just wanted to announce that this is a formal announcement. Bankscoin is a real thing. There's actually a petition on change.org. If you go there right now, I will actually include a link in the description of this video to it where you can sign a petition to actually bring Bankscoin about and help it get passed, um, or at least noticed by the legislators in this country. So the purpose of Bankscoin, like I said, is to fight inflation. Number one, right? Because the Fed, the federal bank, tries to do that by messing with home interest rates and lending rates and banking rates and things like that, and it doesn't seem to have much of a good effect for the American people. They don't seem to correlate in my mind. I don't understand, and no economist I've been able to find has been able to make it make sense why this is a tool that we use. And if it were effective, why is it that we have to constantly toy with the rate? Why is it that inflation's at an all-time high? Why does the dollar buy less nowadays? And it's a multifaceted issue. But my goal is to number one, take on inflation, negate it, and or reverse it with Bankscoin. And we'll do that by actually capturing the real world value of fiat notes. And so I will explain that in further detail also in the white paper, but this is going to hopefully give you guys somewhat of a general idea. So when you look at our fiat currency here in the United States, and I don't have my figures directly in front of me, I have them written down in my notes, but the amount of physical dollar bills that are actually destroyed every year in the United States is in the billions of dollars. All old notes, because they get used and handled and torn and ripped up. And so it becomes the job of the DTCC and the Bureau of Engraving and Printing and a couple other organizations to make sure that money is being printed to replace these bills and that these old bills are being disposed of, right? But the big issue is that when you look at our economic system, there has never been a point in time where the fiat currency we have actually represents the real world economic value that is at play in the United States, right? Because you have, like, take for example, you're someone who's working for $12 an hour, right? Your potential could be 25, 30, 50, $100 an hour, but you're getting paid 12, and that doesn't accurately represent the amount of labor that you create, the amount of value that you bring into the market. And we don't take into account these bills that are constantly being destroyed. We don't replace them. We don't have a way to actually lock in and capture the real world value of a fiat dollar bill note. They're just used almost like IOUs. People say it all the time, cash is trash. And it doesn't need to be that way. And no one seems concerned about this issue or has an understanding of how we could actually fix this issue. And one of the things that I'm going to seek to address with Bankscoin is being able to, number one, lock in the value of those notes, right? Number two, and hold them on chain so that all of America can see that. And then eventually what I would like to do is use this blockchain system, right, where we record the serialized numbers on all fiat currency and record it, and we can actually check that back with the DTC's master list, right? That would be so I don't want to get too far off in the details. This is some stuff for the white papers, but the idea, right, is that number one, we start pegging the dollar to something and recording it. Part of that process of being able to actually determine a value for this thing is that we're able to track all of it. And we need to be able to track all the bills that have passed through the United States or been issued by the United States since its inception, because a lot of those bills have been destroyed or lost. And there have been different banks that have came and gone, but and America keeps at different points in times, if you look throughout our history, having to recognize certain notes, or banks would recognize certain notes or wouldn't recognize them, right? You'd have a bank that wouldn't take a certain bill from another bank because they didn't know who they are, they didn't trust it, and a lot of banks are going bust. And that's when you got things like the FDIC. Right. And part of, I believe, Bankscoin's ability and obligation in value recapturing is functioning much like the FDIC does in the banking sector, but do so for Web3. And there are ways that we can do that, specifically doing things like forking burns. So most crypto projects have a dedicated burn. It's basically like you have the entire treasury, essentially the amount that the amount of coins or tokens that this one project will have or issue or be mined or whatever in totality, and they might already be in existence. And in order to drive up scarcity, they essentially burn part of that supply, or then they do it in a myriad of different ways. Sometimes they send it to dead wallets, sometimes or sometimes like they airdrop it and give it as rewards to the community, which is awesome. I think that's great. But almost every crypto project has this. And I think that instead of taking those burns and using them as burns, we take them and we put them in liquidity pools, and we would pair them with retail investors' money, secure them, take them, put them in cold wallets. These are things that are going to be discussed in the white paper, and essentially create the world's first crypto bond. Okay. And if you guys don't know what a bond is, I will get into that later on. These will, like I said, there's a lot to be covered within this, because I think the vast majority of the world has looked at cryptocurrency, Bitcoin specifically, right, but all of Web3, and it's this sort of copy paste mentality, right? Everyone's rushing to, it was like the .com bubble. Everyone's just getting websites out and trying to be on the internet. and they're all designing the exact same thing. Everyone's just copy pasting. It's all the same open source code. They all do the same things. That's why you see these different layers that go onto these cryptocurrencies or into these Web3 projects, and the solutions as far as forking them or moving on or whatever, or building layers, are all the same across the board. And it's hard to distinguish who's a good actor, who's a bad actor. And what I'm proposing with Bankscoin, we would have the ability to take these burns, right? Essentially what's being wasted, and pair them with retail investors' money, institutional investors' money, the value recaptured bills from the past, from past years in the United States that have never been recorded on the blockchain, the Bankscoin blockchain, hold them for a certain amount of time, right, as a bond. And upon their maturity, they would pay out what they need to. But part of the function of that bond is to help secure the marketplace of crypto. And it actually allows us as the public to have one entity that we trust and understands the marketplace that it's in. We understand the mission of the banks and what Bankscoin is, which is to create a stronger, more robust economy, vet bad actors in the crypto space, because if these projects are being ran by people who are doing pump and dump schemes, things like that, if we could actually secure a bit of the burn, if they were to pull a pump and dump, we would be able to fork the burn and then make all investors whole. Essentially, fraud insurance for the crypto market. And there's a lot of ways I could go about packaging this and selling this or whatever. And that's not my interest. My interest is not to come into the crypto market and sell crypto insurance, crypto loss insurance to everyone. I believe in Web3. I believe in cryptocurrency. I think it's the future. I think blockchain technology is massive and is going to be massive. I think we're just touching the tip of the iceberg here. And I feel at times that I look at blockchain technology and the Web3 space, and most everyone involved in it, they're all creating the same things. And they look at the Bitcoin model of okay, hashing, and you run into these issues that you run into in almost every cryptocurrency Web3 project. The Byzantine general, or the Byzantine kings conundrum or problem. These are things that you guys will have to do some of your own research to understand if you don't already, but they're all struggling with the same issue of security and scalability. and how do we make this one model of something work for 1,000 uses? And I don't think that's the right approach, number one. And I think what they're looking at, everyone is looking at the current popular, if I will, Bitcoin-ish model for cryptocurrency, and the new Web3 stuff, and even the stuff that has some of these layer 2, layer 3 chains. It is people looking at something that is most obviously a tool to most human beings, and they look at it like a hammer. And so everything looks like a nail to them. But they don't realize that this thing is not a hammer. It works great as a hammer, but so when you look at the analogy that I try to make, is that it's Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and permissionless or permission ledgers are not hammers. They're like pistons in an engine. They're one part in a whole. And most people look at it and they see that it's quite obviously a tool, but they can't quite figure out what they could use it for. And my personal belief is all crypto projects and Web3 projects have not been utilized to their maximum potential. Everyone is basically creating these hammers when in reality they're pistons, and there needs to be systems designed around them with compliance mechanisms that are open and fair, and a democratic consensus amongst those projects and amongst the Web3 and crypto community. So that retail and traditional investors don't have to fight each other in this marketplace. There's enough opportunity, not only just in the technology alone, but if you are someone who simply is in the crypto market and you're trading on volatility and that's how you make it right. Great. I am not mad at that. That's been happening for a long time, for hundreds and hundreds of years in stock markets, in one form of another. It's nothing unique. Speculation on uh, assets or commodities or companies. That's what we as human beings do. But what I think most people don't realize is blockchain technology has the ability to revolutionize a lot of things, to include compliance. And I like to think of compliance, what I consider and have labeled it as Web 4. I don't know if there's a more technical definition for that, but I would invite you guys to look into these issues. And I have looked at traditional finance, I've looked at crypto, I've looked at the stock market, and they all have their own unique challenges and they all have their own unique needs, right? But I feel like, especially now that there's a commingling of these things, with a lot of these companies now putting Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies on their balance sheets, there have got to be compliance mechanisms. And that's what I work on. And that's what I am working on. And I think there's a way that we can regulate the market against bad actors, future proof it against bad actors, essentially. Allow it so that those who are wronged by bad actors in this space are made whole, and that whatever project they initially had gotten into, that we can continue those communities and the initial mission that they had set out to complete, right? Especially as a tech founder and someone who works in this space, I can tell you it's not necessarily easy to fork a blockchain, but it is doable. And it is something that, if a project or the community around it wants it to live, it will find a way. The Dogecoin and all those things have gone through crazy things in the markets, and a lot of people have exited out, but the base communities continue to grow. The more awareness is brought into crypto. Only 1 in 8 Americans right now uses cryptocurrency or hold some personally as of 2024. That's the statistic that I last read. So as that number grows, the need to protect us and protect us against institutional investors or people who used to work for institutional investors, like Gary Gensler at the SEC. He used to work, I believe, for Goldman Sachs. And I'm not accusing him of corruption, but also Citadel Group is, I believe, brought suit against him. I believe criminal action, or they're suing him for essentially securities fraud. Or I would have to. I will do an episode on that later on. I don't want to get too far off into this because I specifically wanted to talk about Bankscoin. I don't want to talk about Gary Gensler and the SEC per se, but they have their own troubles. The stock market has its own troubles. Cryptocurrency, Web3 has its own, and there are solutions within Web3 to bring our ecosystem fully into play, where it's protected, and we don't need, or there's not a need of, an outside regulatory body from another industry trying to adapt themselves to try and make play in this industry while telling us that it's actually good for the industry when it's not. And I don't want to get into personal politics, and at some point I probably will end up having to when we talk about this, because there's a lot of opinions on both sides of the aisle here in America as well. But I wanted to speak to that. So number one, Bankscoin will seek to reverse and or negate inflation on the United States dollar and create the world's first crypto bond, secure and protect the market against bad actors. There's a myriad of other things that I'll actually go into, in this podcast is actually taking much longer at this point than I wanted to, and that's on me. I should have actually brought my notes with me. But the biggest thing I want to announce to you guys, like I said, the link will be in the description below. The change.org petition is up for Bankscoin, and I would appreciate any of you who would go and sign it. Please read what's on there and have an understanding of what we're going to be seeking to do. And essentially, I want to be able to have democratization of the compliance that that Web3 is eventually going to experience, and I believe that it should be in the hands of retail investors and the end users, essentially, aka John Q. Public, John and Jane Doe of the American public. So I'll end that cast here. Please like, share, and subscribe. There'll be more coming this week. I will most likely end up doing more than just my normal 2 episodes a week, because there's a lot to dive into when it comes to Bankscoin and what's going on with it. And check us out on YouTube, Pandora, Spotify, all that. And check us out on Instagram as well. The links will be in the description below. I appreciate your guys' listenership, and hopefully I hear from you guys in the future. Or excuse me, don't hear from you guys in the future. Well, or if you do, please, leave your likes and comments and questions, or leave your comments and questions below if you have any. But hopefully, as time goes on, I will get to know more of you who understand this and support this issue, because mark my words, it is coming. And I'm actually excited to see where it goes. So I appreciate your guys' time, and I will end it there.